back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I am doing one more deck tech from Phyrexia. All will be one. I usually only do two, but I did my top commanders from the set video, and I thought Otharri, Sun's Glory was such a fantastic commander. It was my number one pick from the set as a build-around commander, and I thought it was so interesting I would actually do one on my channel. So 3 white and a red, Phoenix 3/3, flying lifelink haste. When Otharri Sun's Glory attacks, you get an experience counter. Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. And you can pay 2 red and a white, tap an untapped rebel you control, return Otharri from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So I think there's just a whole bunch of interesting things you can do with this commander. I had someone comment on that video that they were going to do an extra combats theme because of course your commander has that attack trigger. So the more you are attacking, the more you're going to be getting those experience counters and cranking out those tokens. There's really a lot of ways you can go with this. I didn't do that, but I did a bunch of other stuff. And the first one that I mentioned in that video that I thought worked great is a life gain theme. Your commander has lifelink. You're going to be getting in for damage almost assuredly every turn. Because it has flying and haste, it's very easy to do so in a commander game. So a card like Well Lost Dreams is going to be your best card draw option here, I think. This really is the best card draw option if you're in a life gain theme at all, because whenever you're gaining life, you can pay X, which is the amount of life you've gained or less, right? You can pay any amount of mana here. So if we gain 3 life with our commander, we can pay 3 and draw 3 cards, which is great, or we can just pay 1 and draw 1 card if we only have 1 extra mana open. So that's going to be a fantastic card draw option in this deck. But I also have stuff like Griffin Airy and Lone Rider, which are looking for us to have gained 3 or more life this turn, which of course we will be gaining 3 life on probably every turn. So our Lone Rider will flip over and become a 4/4 first strike trample lifelink creature, again giving us those life gain triggers, which is good. Griffin Airy is going to spit out a 2/2 white Griffin token with flying every turn, just great value. Again, we're already attacking with our commander, so why not? Book of Exalted Deeds will also work the same way. It's looking for us to gain 3 or more life this turn, which we will be doing very regularly, and it's going to give us a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. And then also we can pay 3 white and tap, exile Book of Exalted Deeds, put an enlightened counter on one of those angels that we've already made, and now you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. That's a pretty handy thing to have in a commander game, I think. I also put Searing Meditation in this deck because this is just a card that I've always loved ever since it first came out in Ravnica, and there's just not a lot of decks that want to be using it because there's not a lot of Boros life gain decks out there, of course, but this is one, so I thought I would throw it in there. 1 red and a white enchantment. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2. If you do, Searing Meditation deals 2 damage to any target. So just nice added value to, again, getting those life gain triggers. I thought it was a neat fit. I also put Balefire Legion here, 2 and 3 hybrid Boros mana Spirit Horror 2/4. Other red creatures you control get +1/+1. Other white creatures you control get +1/+1. So just a nice anthem effect in a Boros deck. Of course, our commander being both red and white will get +2/+2, so it'll be a 5/5. That's pretty great. Whenever you cast a red spell, Balefire Liege deals 3 damage to target player or planeswalker. That's pretty good, but even better, whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3 life. So now we're gaining that 3 life we need to trigger these other effects, right? If we don't happen to have our commander around, now all we have to do is cast a white spell. We're going to gain 3 life, and we're going to get those triggers off of those other things that we have in the deck. Of course, we're in a token theme as well, so I got to put Benny Brax in here, Alan Hargreaves. These are, again, more card draw options for us. We have enough options here that we can be drawing cards without putting any just generic card draw in the deck, I think. Alan Hargreaves is going to be particularly good because we are going to be creating a whole bunch of tokens eventually, right? As our commander gives us more and more experience counters, we're going to be spitting out a bunch of those rebel tokens. So now we can tap this to look at the top X cards of our library, where X is the number of tokens we created this turn, and put one of those cards in our hand. So really even better than just a card draw option. Idol of Oblivion as well. Again, if we're creating tokens, this is a great card draw option. Of course, I got to put Anointed Procession in the deck because we're in the token theme. So token doublers are going to be great here. We need board wipe protection. So of course, I'm going to pick the one that fits the theme of what we're doing, which Rootborn Defenses is. 2 and a white instant. Populate. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So this is going to protect our team, which you're going to need in any go wide strategy, which this pretty much is. And then also we get to populate as well. We're also in the rebel theme. And of course, your commander is creating rebel tokens, but throwing a couple other rebels in this deck like Children of Corliss or Reveille Squad is going to be great. These are just good cards in a commander game, I think, particularly Reveille Squad, because whenever you're attacked, if Reveille Squad is untapped, you may untap all creatures you control. And that is going to be a lot of the creatures you have, right? Your commander is going to be attacking all the time. So this is a way to untap it on your opponent's turns. You could use it as a blocker. Also, those tokens you are creating are going to be tapped and attacking. So again, you're going to have a lot of tap down creatures all the time. So Reveille Squad is going to be great if you're getting attacked yourself. It's going to untap all those creatures so you can block with them. Bound in Silence is a really interesting fit here. 2 and a white, tribal enchantment, rebel aura. So this is a rebel card. It's an enchant creature. An enchanted creature can't attack or block. So we can throw this on one of our opponent's creatures, that big scary Blightsteel Colossus or whatever they have. And this is a rebel, right? Our commander says, tap an untapped rebel you control. This is a rebel and we do control it, even though it's on our opponent's creature. And yes, you can tap enchantments. You don't see that very often, but there's nothing saying you can't do that. So we can tap it to return our commander to the battlefield. So that's a pretty interesting include. Of course, we have those changelings as well, like Mirror Entity and Taurine Mauler. Again, just fantastic cards that can go in any commander deck, are going to be particularly good here because of course they are also rebels on top of every other creature type. And I put Mutavault in the deck as well. Pretty expensive card, but it is just such a fantastic fit here because of course it's a land, and you're going to get into the situation where someone's going to cast a board wipe and I really don't want to be casting my commander over and over again. I really would only like to cast it once. So always having a rebel that we can then tap to return our commander to play is going to be important. So after a board wipe, of course, all the creatures are going to be gone, but our Mutavault's still going to be sitting around because it's a land. So we can just pay 1 mana to turn it into a 2/2 creature with all creature types, and then tap it and pay the 4 mana to return our commander to play. So that's going to be a fantastic fit in this deck. We are also going to be proliferating a little bit. I got Graceful Apparition and Sword of Truth and Justice. I didn't go too heavy here. Of course, Boros doesn't have a ton of proliferate effects, although in this set there's a bunch more, so maybe you can include some of those as well. We probably want to be proliferating those experience counters that we're going to be getting from our commander so that when it attacks, now it's going to be spitting out more of those rebel tokens. This is a go wide strategy, aggro strategy, right? We're just going to be winning by attacking with our creatures. We're also going to be returning our commander to play from the graveyard from time to time. So I thought Quintorius Field Historian was an interesting fit here. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token, and also gives those spirits +1/+0. And I thought every time we have our commander come back onto the battlefield, getting a 3/2 or essentially a 4/2 token seems like pretty good value. Also, I don't want my commander to get stuck in the graveyard, right? That's one thing I was a little concerned about when building this deck is, okay, I let my commander go to the graveyard because of course I don't want to have to recast it from the command zone. But what if I get stuck in the situation where I don't have a rebel around to return it to play? That can happen sometimes. So a graveyard hate card like Relic of Progenitus, which again, you might want to just throw in the deck anyway. We always need graveyard hate in our commander decks, is going to be a good fit here because of course we can just exile graveyards, but more importantly, we can just tap and target player exiles a card from their graveyard. So we can target ourselves with this, right? If our commander gets stuck in the graveyard and we can't use its ability, we can now just exile it from our graveyard and then of course put it back in the command zone so we can cast it again if we really get stuck. I also thought Amulet of Vigor was an interesting fit here. Of course, whenever a permanent enters the battlefield tapped under your control, untap it. You'd be surprised how often this can be really good in a deck. You know, even if you just have like an Evolving Wilds, which of course we do have in this deck, your Evolving Wilds is going to go get a land and put it into play tapped. So now of course it's going to be untapped. If you have your Boros Garrison, which we also have in this deck, it enters the battlefield tapped, but here it's going to enter untapped so we can use it right away. But of course I put it in the deck because our commander enters the battlefield tapped, and that can be really, really handy to have your commander enter the battlefield at instant speed, right? Because we can use that ability whenever we want, and instead of it being tapped, it can enter the battlefield untapped so we can use it as a blocker, maybe something like that, or even just on our turn, right? Remember, our commander has haste, so we can attack with it right away. So on our turn, we can tap a rebel or a mutavault or whatever to return our commander to the battlefield, and if it's untapped, now we can immediately attack with it right away, which is something we probably want to be doing, right? I also threw Masako the Humorless in the deck for a very similar reason. Again, our commander enters the battlefield tapped. Now it's tapped and we can block with it because, of course, Masako the Humorless says tapped creatures you control may block as though they were untapped. And then again, also those rebel tokens that we are creating also tapped and attacking. So now we can flash in our Masako the Humorless because it has flash, and aha, we can actually block with all those tapped rebel tokens, even though our opponent thought we were wide open for a hit. So that's going to be an interesting fit in the deck. And I also threw Zerta the Dawnwaker in here. You know, it's interesting, as I talked about in the spoiler video that I did, I made a Zerta the Dawnwaker rebel tribal deck because a lot of those rebels have the tap ability where you have to pay a lot of colorless mana. So I thought it worked good with the whole rebel theme. Even though we're not doing that here, I thought it was a good fit in the deck because we do have activated abilities that having them cost less is going to be great. Even just something like a Wayfarer's Bauble now is going to cost 1 instead of 2. So again, just like with the Amulet of Vigor, it is going to be benefiting us in other ways, but of course, mostly I put it in the deck so that our commander's ability costs 2 less. So now instead of paying the 4, we only have to pay the red and the white and tap an untapped rebel to return our commander to the battlefield. Really, really interesting commander here. So many different ways you can go with it. That's the kind of commanders that I really like to build around. Again, I didn't even cover all the different things you could do in this deck, but I did do most of them. I probably went with a little bit more of a life gain theme than most people would, but there's just so many great free benefits or value that we can get off our commander connecting all the time, which it will be doing, right? You're gonna be connecting with your commander all the time and gaining that 3 life, so why not take advantage of that, I think. Of course, the deck list for this is in the description below. Feel free to check it out if this commander interests you, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.